Texas. He is about to head to the memorial site and to a Catholic Mass and to meet with the victims' families. Those meetings are going to take hours. So as we wrap up here and we turn to Dana Bash in Uvalde, the final words I want to read are from Kimberly Rubio, one of the parents of one of the dead girls. Why would someone hurt my baby? Why would someone hurt her baby? We'll see if President Biden has answers. For now, we'll turn to Dana Bash live in Uvalde for CNN's continuing live coverage.
Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Uvalde, Texas, and welcome to a special live noon edition of State of the Union. What you're looking at right now are live pictures of President Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. They just landed here in Uvalde, and what you see is the president meeting with local officials. He is expected to go from there, the airport, to meet with grieving families here today, try to bring some comfort to a community traumatized, absolutely traumatized by the loss of 21 innocent people, 19 of them children as young as 9 years old. They were murdered in their classroom. This is a community just trying to understand not only that, but why 19 law enforcement officials waited for more than an hour outside the classroom as the children made desperate 911 calls for help. The president lands here as lawmakers in Washington and around the country are renewing calls for action again. But it is unclear whether the president and those in power will be able to get anything done. As we watch pictures of the president, I want to bring in Arlette Saenz. Arlette, you are also here in Uvalde. You're over at the school at Robb Elementary waiting for the president to arrive there, as we said, to meet with grieving families. And Arlette, unfortunately, this is the kind of meeting that this president has had all too often throughout his career.
Yeah, that's right, Dana. President Biden, as vice president and now as president, has gone into these types of communities time and time again. But certainly this will be one of the most difficult meetings he will be having later today when he meets with the families of those who lost those 19 children and 2 teachers here in that horrific massacre on Tuesday. Now, the president has just arrived at an airfield in Uvalde. He is meeting with local officials, including State Rep Gutierrez, as well as Governor Greg Abbott. He is on hand there to greet the president. And then his very first stop here in Uvalde will be right here behind me to the memorial at Robb Elementary School. He and First Lady Jill Biden will come and spend some time here, an area really where the community has been gathering over the course of the past few days. Now, later the president will attend Mass and he will also meet privately with those families, the White House allotting several hours for the president to speak with them as they are hoping that he can offer some type of comfort to these families in this gut-wrenching time. Dana.
Arlette, thank you so much, and we will be getting back to you throughout the hour as the president comes to where you are. And moments ago, I spoke with Brianna Ruiz and her son Daniel, who just visited the memorial where I am here to pay respects to his fallen friends, including his cousin, 9-year-old Ellie Garcia. Daniel is just 9 years old. He climbed through a broken window to survive Tuesday's shooting. Brianna and Daniel, thank you so much for telling your story. Brianna, I'll start with you. What was it like as a parent? I mean, I can't even imagine. I have a son who's just a year older than Daniel, waiting those terrifying moments before he came out.
It was very terrifying. When I got the call from my father, what was going on, I had literally just left his school because he had an award ceremony. And usually when he has things like that, I'll take my kids out of school early. And he had asked me that day if he could, but I had errands to run, so I had just turned to him, told him to stay, and I told him he was gonna be okay. When I got there, that's all I could think of was that I should have taken him out. And it was scary. Where I was at, I was by the funeral home, and I know the layout of his hallway. When they started pulling children out of the classes, I saw all the classes that rounded his area and my cousin's area as well. Once I saw all those children coming out and I saw that they weren't, it was a numbing feeling that I got, just because I could feel something was very off, and just knowing he was still in there, the shooter was still in there, it was terrifying. It was one of the worst experiences ever.
Can't even imagine. And then describe what happened when you finally saw Daniel.
When he came out, it was over an hour later. He was actually one of the last ones from the back of his class coming out. There was a student that was struck in his classroom. And when I saw her, I mean, she was just covered in blood because he had broken her nose with a stray bullet. When I saw that and I recognized the girl was in his class, it sent a more terrifying chill through my body, because I saw all his friends running out and I still hadn't seen him. Then finally, towards the end, when him and another friend came running out together, it gave me back like I couldn't catch my breath, you know. But I ran straight to him and I just held him, and I remember somebody trying to get him out of my arms, but I kept holding him until I walked him myself to the funeral home. I grabbed him and a friend of his, because his friend was very panicking too, and I held both of them together because they've been in school together since, pre-K? So, I mean, they've known each other literally since they were 4 years old, and his friend was just going on about his teacher getting hurt, about how the other student almost died because she got hit with the bullet, and they were just terrified.
And Daniel, you climbed out through a window with broken glass.
Mm-hmm.
And you had glass in your arms, in your hand. But physically you're okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about what happened in that classroom?
We were just, like, nothing really, but he just, like, shot, like, 4 bullets into our class. But, like, her nose broke, and then our teacher got shot in her leg and her torso, but she's all right.
He was never in your classroom because your teacher, is it right that your teacher locked the door and broke the key?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his face?
Yeah.
Through the window?
Mm-hmm.
That must have been, I can't even imagine, terrifying. What were you doing when you were in the classroom?
We were about to do something until we heard first 2 gunshots, and then she locked the door, and then she just, like, dropped on the floor. But everyone was, like, telling her to wake up, even though she was okay.
What, telling her to wake up because she had been shot?
Mm-hmm. They thought she was, like passing out because she was, like, shot.
And were you hiding under desks? Where were you in the classroom?
I was hiding under a table next to the wall. It goes to, like, the end of the wall to, like, the start of the wall. And it's, like, a very big table, but I could still see his face
Through the window? Do you think he saw you?
I think he did, but at the same time, like, people were blocking me, so I don't really know. But I could see where he's, like, staring at people in front of me.
all just, I'm sure, tried to stay very quiet. Not easy in any situation. It must have felt like you were there for so long. Was anybody in your classroom calling 911?
My teacher was trying to, but then like as soon as she was about to press the call button, he showed up to the window, so she really can't, but someone called him, but they were like, she tried to call him, but they didn't like pick up, so she had to text them.
How do you feel about going to school? I know it's going to be summer, but how do you feel about going back in the fall?
Nervous.
Are you able to talk about things with your mom?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think Daniel's doing as a mom? I mean, it's obviously a silly question because we know the answer, but are you able to talk things through? We've talked to a lot of mental health professionals who say that just talking is so important.
It is, honestly. That I do know because that's personally what I'm going to school for is counseling. I do talk to him. I do remind him of how important it is to talk to me. And the good thing that I do have with all four of my children is we have an open relationship, so they know whether they're sad or if they think they're gonna make me upset or anything like that, they do talk to me. They have that trust in me and confide in me about many things. And the first night, he really didn't want to talk about it, obviously, which, I mean, was okay. I told him, if you need to cry it out, if you're scared, it's okay. He hasn't really stepped foot into his room since the incident. He was a real big gamer kid. He hasn't done that either, just because it scares him. I am working on getting him, counseling and therapy long term because I know it's something that affects him. He does have a lot of night terrors. He does talk and scream and cry in his sleep. And I'll ask him, do you remember, what you were saying yesterday? And he'll be like, no.
Daniel, you don't remember any of that?
No.
When you have night terrors, you wake up and your mom asks, you don't remember? Your cousin Ellie. What should we know about your cousin Ellie?
She liked to play basketball. She would always when my little brother was at school, her mom would pick him up, and then when she would get there to their house, she would call him to come in the car and stuff. Cause she was here to pick him up.
You guys were pretty close. Yeah, I know. Close with a lot of the people in there. Well, I just want you to know that you are such a brave person. Such a brave person. I'm sure it doesn't feel like that right now, but you really are, and it's really remarkable that you came to tell your story and to talk about the heroics of you and your teacher and your classmates. Thank you so much, Daniel. Brianna, thank you as well. Thank you. And we're now looking at live pictures of President Biden arriving at the Robb Elementary School, where 21 people were murdered, were gunned down on Tuesday. He's arriving to meet with grieving families, to pay his respects at a makeshift memorial that's there, just like there is here in the town square, where so many people, hundreds, probably thousands of people have come, not just from the community, but from all over. And as we wait to see the president come out of the car, I want to go to the scene there. Arlette Saenz, you were there with the president. Arlette, you have covered President Biden for so many years. You have covered so many, unfortunately, so many of these instances where he can relate to people who are part of a club no one wants to be in, which is a club of people who have to bury their own children.
That's right, and the president so often points back to his own personal losses, having lost his young baby daughter and wife in a car accident, and then later, actually 7 years ago, his son Beau Biden to brain cancer. Now, the president arrived momentarily ago here at Robb Elementary School. We are waiting. My eyes are set on his the so-called Beast, the vehicle that he rides in. So we will let you know as soon as he is out and about to approach the memorial. Of course, he is here with his wife, First Lady Jill Biden, a longtime teacher and educator. This is also a very personal moment for her as well. I actually see the First Lady. She has now stepped out of the motorcade and will soon be meeting her husband to walk over to the memorial site, where you will see 21 crosses for the 19 children and 2 teachers who were lost. Now, I don't know if you can see this on camera just yet, but the president is holding a large bouquet of flowers, and he and his wife are beginning to approach the memorial.
Yes, we do, Arlette, and as we watch, I want to bring in the Uvalde County Commissioner Ronald Garza. Thank you so much for joining. And as we watch, and I just want to say, if the president does it, but when he approaches the memorial, we'll give him a moment. But as a lifelong citizen of Uvalde, somebody who represents the people here, what does this moment mean to you?
Thank you for having me here on the network, Dana. This is great. I'm all for the president coming here. I think he's got a good heart. He knows what it is to lose children at a young age.
And as you're speaking, I just want to say that what we're looking at right now is the First Lady and the President laying flowers at that enormous, enormous memorial. And in fact, let's watch just for a moment. So we were watching the president just have a moment of silence. You saw him cross himself, which, I was saying to Arlette, we have seen so many of these moments with the president. Now, when he was vice president, when he was senator, where he has this unfortunate connection with people who grieve the way that these parents are grieving. Obviously, very, very different because this is a place where kids are supposed to be safe in this school. And I know you went to this school.
Yes.
Your family all went to this school.
Yeah, we have strong ties to Robb Elementary. My dad's second teaching assignment, 1965 to 1970, was a school teacher there. I was a student. My kids, my grandkids, we are emotionally devastated here in Uvalde. We're passing through a valley, but we're only passing. We're going to get through this.
And you see the president and the first lady talking to 2 individuals. They're members of your community. Is that the school superintendent?
Yes, it looks like our Dr. Harrell, our superintendent, and one of the parents.
And I've really felt this the entire time I've been in Uvalde, and you feel this every day because this is your community. It's remarkable how much everybody knows one another. If you didn't have a family member who was murdered in this school, you know somebody who did. Or
That's right.
The fact that this is such a close-knit community makes it even more painful, but in a way brings more support. That's certainly something I've observed.
Yes, the terms close-knit's been mentioned a lot of times here. We have 2 tenants, 2 of our tenants that lost their children in this shooting. One little girl, Jayla Silguero, cute as a button. you know, I would see her there at the apartment complex, riding her bike, and I would say hi to her, and she would always say, "Hi, Ron." That was her expression. And then I would say, "Jayla, how was school today?" "Oh, it was good." I said, "Do you like school, Jayla?" She'd go, "Yes, I like school." "Okay, Jayla, you got to like school to be successful." Yes, tight-knit, very tight-knit community here in Uvalde.
I believe that the governor is there. We can't see him right now, but what would it mean? What does it mean for this moment to be a rare moment of at least physically bipartisan coming together, if not yet, or maybe ever, politically coming together on these issues?
Unfortunately, it's going to take an incident like that happened in our community to hopefully bring people together, bring our leaders together, for them to reach across the aisle and to hopefully get things done. Talking about it is not going to get us anywhere, because after this is gone, everybody leaves and we tend to forget. But I'm optimistic that that our leaders are going to come to some kind of consensus.
We did just see just a few seconds ago the governor hugging the principal of the school. What does it mean to the people here? I was speaking to the uncle of Ellie Garcia, a 9-year-old who was killed, and he said, I'm certainly grateful that the president is coming to our community, but I really wish that he wasn't coming here under these circumstances, which seems to be a very logical thing to say. But do people have an extra feeling of comfort that the commander-in-chief, that the president of the United States is here to console them?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think President Biden making an appearance here is good. It's in order. I welcome his visit, and I think that's what we need. We need the leader of the free world to be here and sympathize and empathize with us.
I'm going to bring in David Axelrod, who is a CNN contributor, but an aide to President Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden. And David, you have the unfortunate experience of being in the room for scenes like this, scenes of unimaginable grief, with then President Obama and Joe Biden when he was vice president. Talk about what it's like, if you can even articulate, if there are even words to explain what it's like in these moments.
Yeah, well, first of all, Dan, I wasn't in the room when the president or vice president visited with families, but I certainly heard a lot about it. And I mean, it's devastating for the families, and it's devastating for the officials as well, and for Joe Biden in particular, who knows the pain of loss so intimately and so devastatingly. It had even deeper meaning. But I remember when Newtown happened and President Obama texted me or emailed me and said, "This is the first time I've cried in the Oval Office," and he was thinking as a parent. And when you come to these scenes as elected officials, you're there in your official duty, you're representing the country, but you're also thinking as a parent, and you're thinking as a grandparent, as many of us have. And to have to try and console people who will never see their children again is an awful, awful thing. It's important, and it's necessary to bring the grief of the country and the soul and the support of the country. But it's hard, and it's particularly hard, Dana, because it's hard to explain how such a thing could happen, and it's hard to explain how we don't really mobilize to do anything about it to prevent it from happening again. And I think those frustrations were felt by both President Obama and Vice President Biden, and now President Biden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to say that just as you were talking, just want to note the incredible power of that memorial where the President and First Lady were going from child to child, from picture to picture, from person to person, who were gunned down senselessly in their own school. It's too much to bear to watch those images. But this is happening at a place where there's a lot of sorrow, but there's also a lot of tension about what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent that in the future. And Arlette, you're there at Robb Elementary, and I know that there was just not an incident, but something just happened with the people there and Governor Abbott. Can you explain it?
Well, so as Governor Abbott was coming to join President Biden at this memorial, you started to hear some of the onlookers shouting, asking specifically for the governor to help, saying that their children are not safe and that they need help here in Uvalde County. But in fact, even just now, I heard one of those onlookers also saying the same thing to President Biden, that they need help here in this county after this tremendous, tremendous loss that so many families are enduring at this moment. I can tell you just a little while ago, I could see President Biden and the First Lady holding hands as they stood in front of these wreaths, taking in the photos of some of those young children who were gunned down. One little girl in her first communion dress, another photo of a boy in a t-shirt. And it is just for the president to come here and take in this moment. This is what he and his advisors wanted, was for him to come and see firsthand the loss that this community has felt and also try to offer some type of comfort to them in any way that he possibly can. Now, after his stop here at the elementary school, he's going to be attending Mass at Sacred Heart Catholic Church. Of course, President Biden attends Mass every Sunday, but this is a very different type of Sunday, as he will be in those pews with the communities, praying with them after this devastating loss. He will then have those meetings with the families, where the White House has really cordoned off several hours for him to be speaking with the families, hearing their concerns, and also trying to offer that type of comfort. But it's very clear that while there is a lot of debate in Washington about what can be done to prevent the next type of tragedy like this from happening today, the president's focus is on offering solace and comfort to this community during their unimaginable pain.
Yes, of course, that's why he's here. But David Axelrod, the fact that you have people who were there, it seems as though, according to what Arlette said, that people were saying, members of the community, or at least nearby, parents, asking, pleading with the governor, pleading with the president, when are you going to do something so that children aren't dying? I'm obviously paraphrasing, but that is the gist of it, to gun violence. And this has been a question that has vexed Washington, and real people in the real world, like here in Uvalde, don't understand why it is so hard for legislators they elect to come together to find some way to mitigate this.
Yeah, Dana, look, I think that most Americans are struck by the sort of Groundhog Day nature of this, that these things happen one after another. We grieve, we hear thoughts and prayers. Elected officials come and try and provide comfort, but cannot get together on any approach to gun violence in this country, which is so much greater than any other country of our wealth in the world. 12 times greater homicide deaths in this country. And so when people say, well, it's a mental health issue, well, yes, this young man had a mental health issue, but we're not 11 or 12 times more beset by mental illness in our country as in these other countries. We do have 46% of the world's privately held guns, and only 5% of the world's population. And so there has to be some approach to this gun issue. And, frankly, I think it's interesting that the president, in his address to the nation the day of this tragedy on Tuesday and to this moment, has not been prescriptive about what he thinks Congress should do. And that says to me, he's not terribly confident about their ability to do it. So, this is a recurring nightmare. And, I would hope, and I would love to see our elected officials get through this and produce something for once. You're a student of Congress. I'm not very hopeful. And so I grieve for these parents. And I grieve for the next set of parents who are going to face this set of circumstances because elected officials don't have the courage and wherewithal to come together and try and find common sense solution.
Well, I have an elected official here, a local elected official, the commissioner here in Uvalde, Ronald Garza. When you see, it looks like members of your community screaming, pleading with the governor, pleading with the president, do something, what do you hear on a local level? And I understand that there's not much you can do on a local level when it comes to either the gun issue or the social issues that lead to this. What's your reaction to that?
You know, Dana, I'm a good listener, and I hear both sides of the story. You know, group saying we need more gun control. The other group saying it's not a gun problem, it's a people problem. Personally, I think, and this is just my opinion, that when it's all done and said, you know, it's the individual that goes and purchases that automatic weapon. You know, it makes it hard for people to defend themselves when a shooter is there with an automatic rifle with so many rounds of bullets. It makes it just that much harder for the victims, that much harder for law enforcement to do something. It just makes it that much harder.
Speaking of law enforcement, let's talk specifically. I know we should be talking about the future, but there are a lot of unanswered questions here in your community about what happened that day, what happened on Tuesday, why there were 70 plus minutes that went by with these 9 and 10-year-olds frantically doing what they were supposed to do, quietly using their cell phones, calling 911. Can't imagine the fear that they had to do that, but they were so desperate, so terrified. And there were these grown-ups in the hallway who didn't come in. What are you hearing about? Is there any regret? I'm sure there's a lot of guilt. What are you hearing from the law enforcement community?
From the law enforcement community, I'm like you. You know, this is all coming to light. We're learning of this, and it's very frustrating. I think people here are very frustrated with the time lapse. Why didn't they move in fast enough? It's a difficult situation to be in a law enforcement uniform, shoes, and to be there, to actually be there. You know, I can say all I want to, but until you're there, and you know, I'm not defending them by all, you know, by any means, but until you're there, you know, and I feel for the students. You know, the students were apparently trained to hide under a desk,
Yep.
to be quiet, you know.
And call 911.
Yeah, call 911.
Yeah.
You know, and yet we have this carnage here. But I keep going back to the automatic weapons. You know, I'm not a gun owner, but I know people who own guns, who are gun enthusiasts. And
a lot of gun enthusiasts in this
and
town.
I see their point of view, and I respect their point of view. But one gun enthusiast told me yesterday, he said, look, he said, let's raise the age level. Is that the answer? Maybe not. You know, maybe that's one of many answers. We're taking baby steps, but we got to do something.
Yeah, which is one of many things that they're debating here. Arlette, I want to go back to you on the scene. The president is still there. He is in at this point.
Yeah, he is just entering the Beast right now to go to his next location. But as he was walking, you once again heard from those onlookers shouting, President Biden, we need help. We need change. Our children are not safe in these schools. The president seemed to acknowledge them. He kind of hopped up the step in the motorcade and waved, but ultimately was not going to come over to the people who were gathered here today. But it is clear that there is frustration and that people in the community want to see some type of changes to ensure that their children can remain safe in schools. Now, from here, the president should be departing at any moment. He will be heading to Sacred Heart Catholic Church to attend mass services there today, as he typically does on Sunday. There will be a very small contingent of reporters allowed in, which is a rarity actually for when the president attends his personal mass. There will not be cameras or audio, but it is expected that there will be some type of reporters on hand to witness what that scene, that moment is like as the president is celebrating Mass with the community. He is about to depart at this very moment, as you'll see right behind me, from the memorial site. A very emotional moment as he went picture by picture, cross by cross, taking in the scene here where so many members of the community have come to honor those who had been lost in that horrific massacre. Of course, the president now has a very difficult task ahead of him at the end of the day when he meets with those families, trying to offer some comfort, but also families that have so many questions about how something like this could take place.
So many questions. And as you just mentioned, I just want to reiterate, Arlette, what was happening behind you is the president departing Robb Elementary School, departing that memorial that has sprung up with those beautiful pictures of the 19 students, ages 9 and 10, the 2 teachers who were gunned down on Tuesday. David Axelrod, this next stop for the president is Mass. One thing that has struck me and has been a comfort to me, as I know it has been a comfort to the community, is the deep, deep faith of so many people I've spoken to here in Uvalde. That's another connection that the president has with them.
Without question. I mean, I think it's faith that allowed him to survive the tragedies that he's gone through in his life. He's a person of deep faith. This is an important element of his life, and I think this is one, as you say, another point of contact with the community. I just want to go back a second, if I can, Dana, on the issue of what's going through the president's mind. In 1994, he was the co-author of an assault weapons ban that lasted for 10 years and then was allowed to expire. And we have a young man here who is 18 years old and a few days after his birthday bought 2 military-style assault weapons, that one of which he used in this assault on children. And this isn't even on the table now. The ban on the sale of assault weapons. That is not even possible in today's political environment. And what must the president think, having worked so hard on this issue in the past and now facing this implacable wall of opposition to even measures like the universal background checks, which has the support of 90% of Americans, cannot get it through the United States Congress, the United States Senate. So think about what he is feeling now as he greets these people, these families who are going through the sense of loss that he once knew, and knowing that he can't really answer their question as to why. Why can't we get something done? It's really this must be a day of terribly, terribly difficult mixed emotions for him because of all of his experiences.
Yeah. Per usual, very well said, David Axelrod. Commissioner Arlette, thank you so much for that. We're going to get back to you as we monitor the president's movements here in Uvalde. And he is, as we talked about, going to do something he has done so many times before. He's going to meet with grieving families. We'll talk about that and more. We'll be right back.
Wherever you go in the world, one airline goes further to make it feel exceptional. Qatar Airways, going places together.
When you grow more, you'll naturally have more to balance. With an expanding community of female entrepreneurs and 22% of working Africans starting businesses, support for new and growing enterprises across the continent has never been more important. Access Bank's digital loans have so far provided over 260 billion naira to upwards of 1.8 million customers and counting. Access, more than banking.
No holds barred.
Out front tonight, hypocrite in chief.
No nonsense.
How stupid do you think we are?
Facts first.
Senate Democrats, they're getting their butts kicked.
Because getting to the truth matters. Aaron Burnett Out Front, Tuesday to Saturday on CNN.
What's it like to be Barry Manilow?
He writes the songs that make the whole world sing.
Oh, look, a piano.
Oh, imagine that.
Fans love him.
You're one of my idols.
Critics, not always.
It wasn't just one critic, it was all of them.
Join me as I ask Barry Manilow about being famous.
There were a couple of years there that I was a brat.
Being inspired.
My proudest moment as a songwriter.
And being an icon for decades.
Being Barry Manilow, Tuesday on CNN.
They've been coming across sniper fire, gunfire. You can see how intense it is.
We have to wrap it up right now.
They feel like they won't be able to outrun the war.
They thought the whole border was open. These doctors have nerves of steel.
You can't help but be struck by how interconnected our world is.
Arwa Damon, CNN.
As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chatterley, host of CNN's First Move. I'll speak to newsmakers, risk takers, and the ultimate game changers. Bold moves, big deals, winning trades. It's all right here. Make CNN your first move.
First Move with Julia Chatterley, weeknights.
At CNN, we see the devastation caused by natural disasters, famine, and war. We also see how the generosity of others can change lives. You and CNN's Impact Your World can help. Reputable charities that are checked out by CNN. See the difference it makes when you give time, share stories, or donate. By just clicking the button, be a part of the solution. Impact Your World.
When you follow a story, you may be asked to take risks.
These protests are a test for Hamas, where Iraqi troops would pre-position and these Americans would advise them. The protesters are just outside a military base. They're throwing rocks. Any understanding between Israel and Gaza could quickly fall apart again.
You witness persistence, and that's where change happens.
The one thing they have in common is a determination to keep going.
Welcome back to State of the Union, live from Uvalde, Texas. Some lawmakers say they are making progress on a compromise plan to address gun violence. We talked with a Democrat and Republican about solutions to gun violence in the United States and where they might be able to find common ground, starting with the Democratic whip in the U.S. Senate. Here with me now is the #2 Democrat in the United States Senate, Dick Durbin. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. So what is the latest on negotiations? Yes or no, is anything actually going to get done this time?
Dana, I can't say for certain, but I can tell you I sense a different feeling among my colleagues after Uvalde. Of course, 10 years ago it was Sandy Hook and Parkland and so many other instances. But it just is so compelling to see the photos of these young boys and girls and to picture your own children or grandchildren captives of this madman as he's killing them off one by one in that school, and realize it is time for us to do something. America is sick and tired of political excuses.
You are in charge of counting the votes in the Senate. You've done many bipartisan deals over the years with Republicans. What is realistic right now? What's most likely to be part of any compromise? For example, a national red flag law, raising the minimum age to buy a gun to 21?
Well, I can tell you that what I want to see done is not likely to occur because of the word compromise, which you mentioned earlier. The question, I think, the real challenge is whether the Republicans will step forward and show courage, political courage, in a very tough situation. There will be some, and I will do everything I can to encourage that. We as Democrats have a different view of the issue. We have to be looking for that compromise that makes things better.
So what is that? Of course, we've known that there are different views on this issue for decades now. But there are areas of compromise.
Well,
there have to be if you're hopeful. So what are they?
Well, you mentioned a red flag, a person who is demonstrating the kind of conduct that is threatening or worrisome to alert law enforcement officials early, to deal with this whole straw purchasing issue. We lost a policewoman in Chicago, Ella French, last year to a straw purchase, a gun purchased by someone without a criminal record, handed over to a criminal who killed this wonderful policewoman and seriously injured her partner. That sort of thing, enforcing straw purchasing, these are all small but important and life-saving steps. How many of those can we bring together on a bipartisan basis? I think there are some.
Vice President Harris called for an assault weapons ban yesterday. Do you see any chance of that happening?
Well, when we had one, there was a reduction in crime, the mass shootings with these weapons. That expired years ago. And unfortunately, in the meantime, there's been a dramatic increase in purchases of these weapons. The AR-15 that was used by this individual in Uvalde, there are now 20 million of those owned by Americans across the nation, just to put it in perspective. So we've got to be realistic about what we can achieve, but there is absolutely no excuse, in my mind, for a military assault weapon to be sold to an 18-year-old with a backpack of ammunition who walks in and kills these innocent children. That is just unacceptable anywhere in the world. It is unforgivable that as American leaders we let this occur here.
Senator, I know you feel strongly about that. You feel strongly about background checks and other more comprehensive gun measures. But you also are making it pretty clear you know the reality. But if you look back at what we saw happen in the U.S. Senate, for example, after the Pulse nightclub shooting, Democrats actually defeated 2 Republican proposals because they didn't go far enough. Are things different now? Are you at the point where you're willing to take half a loaf, or are you still waiting for the whole loaf?
Well, I think last week it was discouraging. After the terrible incident, Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate leader, came to the floor and said, we're going to offer a bill on the floor, open to amendments. It was my bill, a bill on domestic terrorism, just reporting statistics on it. And so we called that bill for a vote on Thursday and said, this will be our opportunity to bring the best ideas forward, and let's vote on them. You know, Dana, because you've been around for a few years, this is extraordinary in the Senate, basically an open rule approach. Not a single Republican would vote for it to give us a chance to proceed to the subject matter. We've got to have a more accepting situation where both sides are willing to understand we have to have compromise if we're going to get anything done, and the American people are sick and tired of political excuses.
Yeah, and I understand the procedure on that, but just looking forward, people like your colleague Chris Murphy says we basically have to pick a couple of things and claim victory because of the reality that we're living in right now. He was speaking as a Democrat.
I'm in touch with Chris, and I'm going to continue to be. My Senate Judiciary Committee has jurisdiction over these issues. Senator Cornyn, who is also meeting, a Republican of Texas, also meeting with Chris Murphy. He's on my committee. But I've said to Chris, and I offered to Senator Cornyn, if you can make progress between you, if you can move us forward, don't worry about the committee jurisdiction. Do the right thing and do as much as you can do. And let's join together, if we can, on a bipartisan basis to show the American people that what happened in Uvalde was not in vain. That sadness and that tragedy in that small town has been felt across America. We've got to respond to it with something positive that shows America we care.
Well, it does sound like you have a different tone in your voice, Senator, a little bit more optimistic than I've heard you on these issues in the past. So we'll see, and we'll definitely be in touch as you're in touch with the negotiators in the Senate. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dana. This has been a powerful program this morning. I I'm glad to be part of it. Sorry for the circumstances.
Thank you, sir. My next guest is a Republican lawmaker who changed his mind about what should be done to prevent mass shootings.
Here with me now is Republican Congressman, Air Force veteran, and pilot in the Air National Guard, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You now support universal background checks, red flag laws, raising the minimum age to buy a gun, banning high-capacity magazines. How did your thinking evolve?
So a lot of that happened around Vegas. So I woke up the morning after the Vegas shooting, and we heard the audio from that, and I had shot a bump stock before. I knew that was a bump stock, and so I called for banning bump stocks. And at that point, it's like, okay, this is getting out of hand. What are the things we can do, to make a difference? I mean, obviously, there's going to be some fundamental disagreement, and it's like, what? Well, why should somebody be able to buy a gun at 18, particularly a long gun at 18, when, as of recently, they can't even smoke cigarettes till they're 21? It's just the right thing to do. The problem is everybody is scared to inaction. They're frightened of the loudest voices, and 90% of Americans are begging that we do something.
Is that the reason why you think so many of your fellow Republicans aren't where you are on those issues?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a bunch that are where I am, but they won't say it, or they won't come out and say it because, again, it's, I've experienced this, whether it's talking about Donald Trump, January 6th, or the guns issue, is, yeah, once you make something that's outside of the cultist position or outside of, that, like, tribal position, you're going to get a bunch of texts that say you're crazy, it's my right, the Second Amendment. Even though we all believe in the Second Amendment, we just believe that there are reasonable things to do about it. And, look, if you look at this shooting, you look at Buffalo, you look at Parkland, and all these others, they are people taking these guns, these ARs, under the age of 21. Can we stop all of it? No. Can we mitigate it? Certainly. And we should be doing that now.
Governor Greg Abbott says this shooting shows the need for more laws addressing mental health. Texas Senator Ted Cruz wants to reduce the number of doors in schools, install bulletproof glass, put armed cops on school campuses. Is that enough to stop mass shootings if the U.S. doesn't also do something about access to guns?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, I do think it's a hard issue because people have to make a decision to go and do a mass shooting. But if we think that just hardening schools or reducing, basically turning schools into military camps is going to be the answer, even if it does work, which it won't, but even if it does, that's not the kind of country I want to live in, right? I got a kid that's 4 months old now. We'll be going to school someday. I don't want to have a military ID to check him into the front gate of his elementary school. And, so look, what you're seeing right now, Dana, is all these people these politicians that are scared to death to talk about the gun issue. They know that this is an issue, but they're scared to talk about it, so they launch into this thing about mental health. We all agree that mental health is a problem. First off, I'd ask, have they actually put any more money into mental health? People like Ted Cruz, highly doubt it. But secondarily, at the same time, why is an 18-year-old buying an AR? So it's not an if or that. There's always the old saying, too, about the way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Typically, I agree as well. But there were 150 good guys with guns at this shooting that didn't do anything, until basically Border Patrol SWAT showed up. We got to take handle of this, man. This is insane.
Congressman, you do still oppose a ban on the kind of assault weapons that were used in the shooting. Can you explain why private citizens need weapons of war?
Look, I have opposed a ban, fairly recently. I think I'm open to a ban now. It's going to depend what it looks like because there's a lot of nuances on what constitutes, certain things. But I'm getting to the point where I have to wonder, maybe somebody to own one, maybe you need an extra license, maybe you need extra training. And so the question is it a ban versus an additional certification? But yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, the 99.9% of people that own ARs, we all know, are not going to walk into a school and do this. But the problem is for those that support the Second Amendment, like me, we have to be coming to the table with ways to mitigate 18-year-olds buying these guns and walking into schools. My side's not doing that. My side's not coming forward with reasonable ways to defend an amendment that we think is very important. And so I'm looking at this going, fine, if people are going to put forward solutions about certifying maybe who can buy an assault weapon, I'm certainly open to that.
Well, so that is another change it sounds like you're willing to make. Congressman, I want to